what the double blip is first. One load to get the front tire into the air, a second to propel us over the obstacle, okay? So you hear a distinct 1, 2, okay? One, to get the front tire into the air, a second to propel us over. So listen to the power first. One to get the front tire into the air, a second to propel us over. Listen. 1, 2. It's all before the obstacle, isn't it? 1, 2. I'm delivering that power before the obstacle. If I do it too late, 1, 2. You know, I spin on top of the obstacle. You don't want to put power down on the obstacle, especially if it's slick, right? The slicker it is, the more you have to understand that collection of power. So I'm going to really heavily explain here, but listen. 1, 2. Almost no power on top of the obstacle. Almost none. 1, 2. That's what I was shooting for. We want that bike to just about stall.
Okay.
That's how you know you're maximizing the collection of power.
Yeah.
You're trying to get it to chug. Down to nothing. Every time you want it to.
That's a good example.
It's a good practice.
Yeah.
Trying to get it to stall.
Yeah.
Right? The lower you can get the power over the log, the more traction you're going to get. Just trying to make sure that I establish all of my momentum before. One to get the front tire into the air, a second to propel us over. 1, 2. Now, we also have a pretty heavy amount of body position here, right? Notice the body position. We come in chest down, centered position. We drive our knees directly to the radiators. Clutch comes in, front brake comes in, throttle comes on. The load for the first blip. We go back to get the front tire into the air. We see my hips come back, my knees come back, my heels drop. Front tire drives into the obstacle. While my front tire's about into the obstacle, I'm loading again with that second blip, clutch in, throttle on. Front tire drives into the obstacle, my weight comes forward, then I come back again. So it's forward, back, with body. Forward, back, lots happening. We'll get even more in depth. It's about half of it. We're here, it's back, we go forward, back, See here that, remember when we were talking about just hitting the log just a second ago? As the front tire drives into the log, right? The front tire drives into the log, the bike and you are in motion. You are moving forward. As the front tire drives into the log, the machine itself is hindered, its motion is hindered by the log. So that slow in motion is a natural place for your body to stay in motion and you to get in front of the bike. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that I'm throwing my weight forward, although I am kind of helping it. I'm driving the front tire into the log. The machine and you are connected at that point, but as the front tire drives into the log, the machine and you are separate. So the machine slows and your body is still in motion. That gets you in front of the machine. So you're kind of naturally, the bike's naturally slowing when it hits the obstacle. You're driving your weight forward. So it's the same as when we're rolling over the obstacle. Now we're just adding that piece of lift and loft with the front tire into the obstacle. So you can see, I lift the front tire drives into it, I'm coming forward as the bike comes into me. Then as I release the clutch on the second blip, all I'm doing is letting the bike come out from under me. It's again a natural flow back and forth. There's not a lot of there is a bit of initiation with my body, but it's more naturally what happens with my body as I go over the obstacle.
So there's a bit of compression though, like when you come down with your knees and do that first blip, you're loading, right?
And I'm gonna go in on the first blip.
Okay.
Because we need to be able to do the first blip without an obstacle. Just kind of explaining the whole thing and then we're gonna break it down. So check it out. So once again, watch the body. Forward, back, forward, back. The initiation is with my body first. I drive my weight directly to the radiator. The front brake comes in, the clutch comes in, the throttle comes on. Forward, back, forward, back. Forward, back, forward, back. Now this is something that we talked about. I think you should have your finger on the front brake at all times. For safety, but also notice how I use that front brake to get suspension compressed. Boom, 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 boom. I'm dragging that front, so we're trying to drag. You can even look at the front tire.
I've seen it, yeah.
I'm using that front brake to initiate more suspension compression, right? So dragging that front at all times is a good thing to do. I've done so many of these. I don't have to look at the option. One more time I'll look at Gordon here. Says fuck you.
I love it. I love it.
So you can see, I've done a million of these.
Yeah.
Again, it's like repetitions are key. That's the first thing. But the understanding of it and getting in depth with it is the important part of your approach. Okay, so that's kind of the breakdown of it. Now we're going to get even more in depth with it. All right, so as I'm kind of saying there, I deliver the power here, I collect the power on top. There's a lot of body position, there's a lot of movement. I think the best way to learn the double blip is getting first that front tire into the air, right? So the first step, unfortunately, of the double blip has like 10 steps. Most guys are like, oh dang, let's, you know, it's 2 blips. So, you know, and that's it. Turns out, just to get the front tire into the air, there's so many things that are happening. So I'm going to explain that. As you ride forward, you're approaching the obstacle. Our goal is to get the front tire up into the air about 3 to 4 feet in front of the obstacle. The further you can get your front tire up in the air, or kind of the earlier you can get your front tire into the air, the more separation you can have between the 2 blips, which will make it a little easier on you. That'll be kind of a little later as we start to actually apply it to an obstacle. But I like to get it 3 to 4 feet in front of the obstacle. Instead of lifting the front tire right here, I'm lifting it a little bit early, right here, to allow a little more time for me to load for the second blip. The bigger the obstacle, the more load I'm gonna need to get that momentum to propel me up and over, right? So 2 to 3, or 2 to 4, let's say, 4 feet in front of the obstacle. We drive our knees to the radiator. That drive is to initiate suspension compression. It's also a drive forward to signal, not only initiate suspension compression, also it's a load of body position, right? Because if I'm forward, I can drive back. That drive back's gonna assist the front tire into the air, okay? So we have a load of suspension, we have a load of body position, and it's also a signal to increase the power and load the engine, okay? So as I drive forward, my knees go to the radiators, clutch comes in, front brake comes in, throttle comes on. That's simultaneous. Knees forward, front brake comes in, throttle comes on, clutch is in, front brake is in. Clutch in, front brake in, throttle on. Hips back with the rebound of the suspension, throttle off, front brake out, clutch out. Throttle off is key. Most guys think I'm putting direct power down. I'm not. I'm using a dispersing power. The best riders can use a dispersing power. So I'm driving forward, suspension is compressed, front brake is on, clutch is in, throttle is on. I have a load. Boom, I actually have 3 loads, suspension, body, and bike, right? So that's efficiency. We're using everything together to find efficiency. I drive forward, clutch in, front brake in, throttle on, suspension is compressed. As I come back with my hips, throttle comes off, front brake comes out, clutch comes out, suspension rebounds. Knees come back, hips come back.
Are you dumping it or are you slightly
I'm coming out to the end of the friction zone, and then I'm actually pulling it back in.
Okay.
Why am I pulling it back in?
Because your load, you already had your power before you, yeah.
Yep. I'm loading again for the second blip. I'm also using that clutch back in as a safety measure. So getting good at going out in is really important because if I have a load, so first off, why do I let the why do I let the throttle off as I come back? Leave the throttle off. If I drive my weight forward, get a suspension compression, get my body weight forward, I'm on with the throttle, in with the clutch. If I leave the throttle on and release the clutch,
oh, you're loop
do a
out.
backflip like you did.
Like I did.
See how that bike doesn't have a loop ending? That's because you didn't collect, right? Understanding the reduction of power is so important.
Yeah.
So as I drive forward, we get a load. That's a signal for me to go front brake in, clutch in, throttle on. As I snap back with the rebound of the suspension, clutch comes out, front brake comes out, throttle comes on. So everything is very simultaneous. And it takes this, right? A lot of coordination, okay? From there, that front tire comes into the air, the front tire drives into the obstacle, and we literally are doing the same thing twice. As the front tire goes into the obstacle, and as the front tire is driving towards the obstacle, I'm loading for the second blip. So I drive forward, throttle on, back, clutches in, clutches out, front tires into the air. I come back in with the clutch and I load again. I'm actually pulling the front brake in a little bit to initiate more suspension compression, and I come out again to drive me over the obstacle. Now, there's a lot there, right? Just the first blip. You're in that center position. I drive my knees to the radiator. Front brake comes in, clutch comes in, throttle comes on. I snap my knees back, my heels drop. With the rebound of the suspension, clutch comes out, front brake comes out, throttle comes off. Go.
You're straighten them and coming back. Yeah.
Now, the best way, I think, to even get to that point, again, most guys are like, I'm gonna hit this obstacle. Well, if you can't lift your front tire like that every single time, I wouldn't be worrying about an obstacle.
Yeah.
Right? I think even that, to do it proper, is almost too much. Right? I mean, there's a lot happening there. So I think the start is to get the throttle and clutch right. This is where we talk about collection of power. So I told you guys, power delivery, power collection. It's easy to deliver. It's hard to collect. You guys saw as I went over one of the first times, I didn't collect the power, I kept the power on, and the rear tire spun on the obstacle, right? That obstacle's dry. Imagine if it was slick, it'd probably crash.
Yeah.
Collection of power is key. The best riders in the world have an ability to collect their power quickly. They have an ability to go from maximum delivery of power, right? They can go from maximum to minimum after their momentum is established to maintain momentum. The quicker you can make that transition from maximum to minimum, the better rider you are, right? Because we're putting maximum power down to establish momentum. Then after a momentum is established to maintain traction and movement, we collect that power and we keep it down in the low RPM, right? The quicker you can collect, the quicker you can create a descend of RPM, the better you are. So the bike naturally has a descend in RPM, right? Right? That's how long the bike takes to naturally come to idle. If we can speed up that descent of RPM, we're collecting our power. We deliver power here, we collect the power here.
Yeah.
You guys see how much faster that is? The reason reason that's important to understand is, first off, you see there's movement there, isn't there? My hand isn't on the throttle, is it? I rev and I collect the power, but I still am moving. I'm still getting movement from the machine. The reason I'm getting movement is there's, again, that potential energy, right? It's like we have the spinning inertia of the flywheel, that's a huge piece of it, but the piston, the clutch, anything that's moving, right? The object in motion stays in motion thing. That potential energy, you're using a descending power. You're using that descending RPM to create efficient traction. Do you guys notice there how smooth the bike rolls away as I do that?
Yeah.
Whereas if I just give direct power with no clutch, it's kind of beautiful, very direct. It's kind of lumpy. We can actually take an inconsistent power delivery and make that bike a lot smoother by collecting the power with our clutch. It's making sense to you guys. This is why the clutch is so important, because we're now creating, we have two forms of control. We have throttle and clutch. We can deliver the power and collect the power. The more efficient we can be with our control of the machine. So a great practice for your double blip is not hitting logs. It is, I mean, that's a good way to do it, I guess. But I think the best way to do it is separating each piece and maximizing your control of the machine. So I'm going to show you guys. Listen to the bike here. You guys hear that? It's all pretty dang similar sounding, isn't it? Just about every one of those is very consistent, right? They all sound about the same. They're the same delivery, they're the same descent, there's the same collection of RPM. Right? Now listen to the bike here.
It applies. It applies. I see what he's saying. You're applying that to that.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You guys can hear. It sounds the same if I'm doing it on a flat ground. It sounds the same in a blip. It sounds the same in the double blip, doesn't it? Now, here's the thing that's hard about this. If you can't make your bike sound the same every single time here, you can't make that right there, I wouldn't be hitting it off.
Yeah.
Because it's the same, isn't it? But the thing is I'll tell you right now, 99% can't make that bike sound the same every single time. It seems easy.